Hello and welcome to Systemize Your Success. I'm Dr. Steve Day, and today I'm joined by Joe Davies. He's the co-founder of Hoso Simple, which is a short-term holiday let management company who've actually recently been acquired by Host and Stay. Joe now invests in holiday lets himself, and he's massively experienced in systemising service accommodation businesses. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. It's my pleasure to have you on the show today and chat about how you've done this incredible feat and what lessons you can teach the rest of us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. I think it's just important to say what an honor it is to be on this show. I've listened to your podcast all the time, and I think you're a massive part of my success. So I think this is a nice way to put it full circle. And to be a guest on your show all these years on is a real privilege. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. No, I've been looking forward to this one, to be honest. We've started working together maybe 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, I think it was COVID.
It was pre-COVID, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I always had my eye on you, and I was a typical drowning business owner who dreamed of having time to spend on the business. And then this freak event of nature where the world stopped meant that while everyone else was out walks and making banana bread and stuff, I locked myself in a room and decided to throw myself into the world of systems and outsourcing, which was a great decision.
Yeah, no, I actually remember it quite well because I think we just started working together before COVID. And I remember you talking about having to furlough a lot of your staff because obviously serviced accommodation, the business basically just died a death overnight. And I remember you saying this is a great opportunity because now I can focus on my remote staff, my Filipino team, and get them up to speed without the distractions of daily work. And I thought it was such a great mindset about the whole disaster, and to actually then come out the back of it a few years later and to be in a position to not only grow the business, but then ultimately sell it. I mean, that's the dream that most of us aspire to, or at least be in the position to do that if we choose. So let's take it back to the beginning. Like, when did you start Hoso Simple? What was your dream at that time? And what panned out over the coming months or years until we met?
Yes, so it's quite an interesting one, really. I never actually knew I wanted to run my own business, which I know you hear entrepreneurs say, oh, I've known since day one, I always wanted to work for myself. But I actually went to study business management in university in my hometown of Liverpool. And I was following the typical process of, get good A levels, get into a good uni, get a good degree, get a good graduate job. And I come from a family of teachers who very much follow the head down, work hard, and enjoy your retirement type lifestyle. And I sort of just bought into that by default without even realizing. It was only when I actually luckily I went on an internship. So my degree had a year in industry, which I thought would help me get a job. But what it actually did was taught me what I didn't want to do. I went to work in Airbus, the plane manufacturer in Broughton, which was a lovely place to work. It was a lot of people. It was lovely people to work alongside. It was half day finish Fridays. It was flexi time. It was good pay. It was everything you want from a job, but it was a job. And that was what really hit me, that I was just a number. There was 6,000 people on site. I had my ID number and my badge, and that was pretty much the only distinctive thing about me. And that really hit hard. I came back to university with a real fire at my belly to try and think of something else to do. And luckily my now wife, Katie, she was actually looking after an Airbnb for a family friend. And it was the typical way that Airbnb worked back in the days. If you think back to then, Airbnb wasn't quite as popular as it was today. And everyone who couldn't manage an Airbnb had someone through a family friend, whether it was someone's friend's neighbor's sister or something. It was always these loose connections that someone would look after. And if you didn't have the luxury of having someone's neighbor's sister to look after your Airbnb, you basically couldn't be doing it. So cut a long story short, we decided to increase Katie's prices. She was getting probably about 2% of the income and doing all of the work because she was paid a fixed fee per changeover. And we launched Oh So Simple, which was just a sort of have a go business. I created a website on Wix, which is still the very website today that I created, which proves you don't need to pay a fancy web developer or spend thousands on a website. And we launched, and I think I finished university with 9 clients. And it was a major decision then of, do I go and get the graduate job that I should get, or do I give this business a shot? And I'm now very glad that we decided to give it a shot, and we just grew organically and slowly over the years from there. So Katie played a massive role in that. I mentioned before, my family teachers. I'm a very risk averse person. Katie is very much more the optimist in the relationship. Dive in, and she pushed me a lot to say, this could have legs. We can do this. We can do this. And yeah, I owe a massive amount to her for pushing us at that time. Funnily enough, me and Katie met when we were 14. We had a paper round together. We then worked in a bar together. So we now work in the business together. So we never really had a job separately other than my one internship. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride since then. 2016 when we founded. So yeah, 7 years, and who knew it would lead to where we are today, being acquired by Host and Stay.
I mean, fantastic journey. And before, if you just take it back then, so it was just the two of you to begin with.
Yeah.
And obviously, I presume you had cleaning staff and people on the ground helping you at some point. When did you start, though, actually getting the business systemized and actually the daily work and churn, the stuff that, the phone calls in the middle of the night and the chasing people up and the endless admin of serviced accommodation? Like, when did that change for you, and what was the sort of the light bulb moment, and how did you go from being those two people who were doing it all to, fast forward a few years, selling a very substantial size list of properties to a different company?
Yeah, I think we went into it with our eyes wide open without properly realizing where it would take us. So we didn't really know when things would change. So it was like pushing a snowball down a hill, and we were just running as fast as we can with it and just seeing until we burnt out. I think one of the benefits of being so young, we didn't have many commitments. We didn't have mortgage, car, kids, or any overheads, which I know can be a thing that holds a lot of people back. And at the time, we were pretty fearless. We just come out of university. And I remember even in university, I was studying in my final year, trying to make sure I didn't get too distracted with the business to ruin my degree almost. But I remember the client calls would be coming thick and fast whilst I was in the library. And I remember where I used to work was roughly about 30 seconds walk from the communal stairwell where you could take a phone call because it was ultra quiet in the university library. I remember the phone call would ring roughly about 30 seconds. So my fast-paced walk from the computer to the stairwell, I'd answer the client call, panting away, trying to be as professional as possible, and probably making a whole hash of it, but just stumbling by. And I think a lot of those calls were dealt with just by a sheer willingness to succeed and help. We genuinely wanted to be the best business at what we did, but we probably didn't make the most smart decisions in how available we were. We were 24/7. We give our mobile to all clients, a typical business owner when they start, and it very quickly becomes unsustainable. I think I mentioned we had 9 clients when we left. It felt like we had 99 clients. It's far easier to manage a business with 100 clients and a team and processes and systems than it is to manage 9 or 10 with absolutely nothing and just a sheer desire to succeed. So I think we were lucky in the early days that we hired, as a lot of small business owners do, family and friends to help us, which was great because you had a bit more leeway, a bit more trust that maybe when you made the wrong decisions or you didn't quite make the right call with staff, they knew who you were and had the right intention. I think when you work with someone completely new and you come into chaotic business, it can be this is not for me. And I know there's a balance between a hustling startup culture and just a mess. And I think we definitely rode that line at times. But I think just asking for advice as well. Like Katie's dad is always been in business in different areas. He owned a talent agency looking after like TV personalities and singers and stuff, and completely different industry. But we'd always say, how would you approach this? What would you do? And sometimes we'd disagree, but it was great to just have a bit of humility to know that we were young and we weren't afraid to be the dumb person in the room, because we weren't trying to act like the seasoned pros, and we were in a new industry with very little existing knowledge or professionals. So it was quite lucky that there was no experts in the room. We were just trying to be that. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question more directly, over time, as we brought more staff in and people came and went, we just had to start picking roles. We when we had 4 or 5 of us, we literally all did the same job. There wasn't even a job title. We had both of our mums were cleaning, washing machine at home never stopped. Every banister had a duvet on or a sheet at all times of the day or week. So it very much was a run with it until we get there. But I think as COVID came, I think we were 3 years in then, we were probably heading for failure in that way. We hadn't had a chance to stop and assess, right, where are we heading here? Very much on the hamster wheel, as they say, and without much of a plan to get off it or how to get off it. So the first few years were very, very intense, and I remember feeling very stressed at times, with like literally pain in your heart, with bags of tears in your eyes, thinking, how am I going to get out of this situation? But just keep plodding, keep going, and eventually little nuggets of information are left for you. And I think it was just someone on Facebook recommending you, and me saving it as a bookmark on my browser all these years ago. And yeah, it's those little things that eventually work their way through, and you can find someone who can hold your hand and say, this is how to do it.
So what happened next? I mean, I must actually say, just listening to your story, like for me, it brings back such like memories of my start in business, proper business. Because it's similar to you. I started my first business in my last year at university. It was in property. I hired my friends and family, and my dad was like massively involved, and he just put it with my nonsense and partying and turning up late and whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, all those things just massively resonate. I massively resonate with them. So it's just interesting because it's the first time I've heard that part of your story. So anyway, we had a similar journey into the world of business, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So what happened next? So you've got to the point now. You're basically you've grown the business. How many properties did you have under your belt at this point then, before you really got involved with systemising?
So we actually had, and it's strange, you'd think we would linear go up as we grew. We had a bit of a strange growth where we actually hit 100 properties before we started working with you guys, but it was 100. I'd probably say 60 of the wrong properties, if that makes sense. It was just any property was good, and any client and any standard. And again, naive, trying to go in and just concentrate on the number. It's a question you get asked a lot when you run an agency, how many properties you manage, and it's actually the wrong metric to qualify a successful business in my eyes. I think we could very easily have double the amount of properties that we have even today, but we would have a worse business, a worse culture, unhappier staff. And I think when I learned that, again, it was in COVID, when it's a lot of time to reflect and look at, I think, the Pareto principle of 80% of your problems coming from 20% of your clients. And we just decided to take a bit of a gamble. And we obviously lost some clients naturally through COVID, pivoting to rentals and stuff like that. But we almost sent a little bit of an ultimatum, shall we say, to some clients to say, look, we're trying to reposition the brand. This is who we want to be. This is who we are. This property doesn't quite fit that. Doesn't mean that we're not right fit for you in the future. Just means right now, this is what you need to do to fix it, whether it's spend £10,000 or something that wasn't always money. And a lot of clients said, no, that doesn't fit in with us. And we said, that's fair enough. And we recommended other agents to work with who might be able to help them. And we actually slimmed down to about, I think it was between 50 and 60, which was a very scary time, because we had the same overheads as when furlough started to, tail off and staff started to come back. We really needed to hit the ground running. But then we grew back up to 100 in the years following. and they were 100 quality properties, which meant the number of issues we had went down, our average review score shot up, our profit margin shot up. So from externally, if you're looking at the metric of number of properties, we were stagnated, we dipped and come back. But internally, even just the mood within the company, like I think we decided, I remember in one meeting we said, if you wouldn't proudly put your parents in there or your grandparents, they shouldn't be on our books. And we used to say if we wouldn't stay in there ourselves, but we all had different ideas of what that is. And I think you've got quite heightened standards when you decide to put someone else in there on your behalf. So yeah, that was a real pivotal moment for us and really actually allowed us to focus on who we want to be. I know that you hear a lot of people talk about mission and vision and values, and they can sound like fluffy words to a small business owner who's barely, making ends meet, trying to stay alive in the chaos of tasks. But they mention it for a reason, because it's not just to stick a nice poster on the wall and say, look at us, we're a big business. It's actually to give you direction and to know if you're going to receive 200 new sales calls in the next 2 months, how are you sifting through them? What is the criteria that, because it's not all about any sale is a good sale. And I think, especially in a service-led business, that is even more pivotal. And once we identified our brand, it actually attracted even more of the right people to us, because we were verbally and explicitly stating who we were and where we positioned ourselves in the market, rather than just trying to be in a one-size-fits-all company. So yeah, we dipped and came back, and to be honest, didn't grow too much higher than that. We finished, I think we acquired about 107 properties, but yeah, if you look at like the figures behind the business, they were very different.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that. In the early days when you're trying to just put food on the table, so to speak, then yeah, you take anyone that comes and offers you some money. But as the business grows and as the staff start actually feeling the pressures of having less than ideal clients, then you realize there's a time to actually do something about it. And I think it took me three years of trying to finally publish my values as a business, and internally mainly. But obviously we share those with our clients as well. And we now have that as a central part of our team culture, that about actually talking about our values and our mission on a weekly basis. And people that are interested in that quickly leave the company. That's great. So it helps on that side as well. I think it's you can use it, and it does change the type of client you work with. But similar to you, our number of clients we work with at any one time has actually gone down significantly, but our the success rates plus the profit of the business, all those things have gone up, because we've made a real decision about who it is that we can serve in the best possible way. And I think when you hit this nail on the head, it's like you just do what you want to do and people love you for it. And that is when you get a winning combination.
Yeah.
Because it's effortless. Okay. Not effortless, but it's without, moral dilemmas anyway.
It fits your purpose as well of what you're trying to do personally and run a business. One of the best books I read about this concept was Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley.
Yeah.
And he actually advised above the contact us page on our website to actually explicitly write how so simple is a company founded to fill a gap in the market to service these type of clients. We only work with high quality properties, 2-bedroom and above, and only in Liverpool city centre. And even though most people would read that and go, oh, it's not me, the people who would read it and go, that's me. Yeah. Oh, this is the perfect company for me because I fit all the criteria. Yeah. So we were actually sifting through that criteria anyway once everyone had inquired, but putting it above the contact us page only increased the quality of leads we got and reduced the quality of bad leads. So we happened to say, well, we don't service that area, sorry, or the property is not quite for us. It reduced that time as well. So it was a great book to read at a pivotal time for us.
Yeah. No, I've got a video rather than it's like, please watch this video before you book a call, because there's no point in booking a call if I can't help you. So exactly. It's a great way to sift through people, or to at least rationalize who you speak to. So let's talk about systems because this is the Systemize Success
Yes.
podcast. You're at this point now where you had 100, maybe dropped down to 60 over COVID. You mentioned at the beginning that was a time for you when you went deep on the systemization of your business. And I know from memory, that's when, or I think from memory, that's when you started looking at working with virtual assistants from places like the Philippines. So what was that journey for you? How did you turn that, in your own words, I think you said it was sometimes slightly chaotic, sort of business where you're
Yes.
basically just doing everything, but without a proper system behind it. Like, what happened between that to being the business which you then ultimately sold, and how much do you think that played in the eventual sale of the business?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about this in the actual detail as well, which I think probably would be beneficial more than generally, where we actually created an Asana project. And Asana was something I learned through System for Outsourcing, which still use to this day, religiously. But we listed absolutely every single process or task in our business, regardless of whether it could be outsourced potentially. That question was going to come later. It was sending an invoice, it was paying staff, it was scheduling meetings, it was responding to guest queries, it was answering phone calls, it was sending emails, it was absolutely everything. And we come up with this ginormous list. And then
I seem to
we,
remember you actually. This is going back, but I seem to remember you came to me one day with a spreadsheet.
yes,
If I
we
remember
had
correctly.
it was a team effort as well, just to say everyone record everything that you do. And if there's a task in our business that gets done, even if it's just one person, it needs to be on this
Yeah.
list. And then it was actually really nice to see the chaos in written form, because it didn't solve anything there and then, but it made the problem or the beast in your mind feel finite. And I know, whenever it is, there's always something. You can always go more granular. But just seeing the thing that goes on in my head every day on paper, um, was really, really nice. And then we then can work with that. Once it's written, you can then start to go, right, what category is this? This is more customer service. This is more admin. This is finance. This is marketing. We broke it all down, and we quickly realized we're very much a service-led business. Customer service, I think, as I said before, clues in the name of serviced accommodation, and that's where we needed most of our help. It was also one of the lowest income generating tasks in terms of like return on investment from me and Katie, working on those things. So we decided to bring in a VA, which I think one of the best things for Systems for Outsourcing was that it didn't just say hire a VA and ask us any questions. It literally held our hand all the way, even to the point of letting us work with an existing VA who's used to working with novice business owners, who was doing the actual tasks in our business, but giving us on the job training. So I remember JJ, who was great, and she would say, next time you set this task for me, maybe it's better to do it in this way, or give me more clarity at the front end, or you didn't give me an allowance of time on how long it would take. And even though we were still getting things actually done in the business, she was training us on the job. So it was a great way to learn. And I know everyone learns differently, but for me, listening to the theory of things, especially when a lot of the course is obviously video focused and conceptualizing things, the on the job element of it was what I think set out Systems for Outsourcing from the other type of agencies, shall we say, who are out there. It's not an agency, it's a education system to help you become your own agency in essence. And it gave us the confidence then, so that when we did hire someone, we had JJ to ask for questions, as well as yourself, as well as the other team. But also, we'd made a lot of the mistakes that we would undoubtedly have made with our first hire, and possibly put them off, and possibly made them feel inadequate or not up for the job or whatever. And really, it's us. I had a great podcast the other day where constantly reminds himself of the Taylor Swift song. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And I think it's a great thing for business owners. It's 99% of the time us when there's a problem. And I think the biggest thing with hiring VAs is that we wait until we're absolutely desperate and so overran with work that we go, right, I'm going to hit the VA button and think that my world's going to suddenly be solved. And you have to remember these VAs, which ultimately, I don't even like the term VA too much. I think you've mentioned this as well.
Yeah.
They're human beings, they're people, and whether they're based in the Philippines or in England or wherever they are, to come into a chaotic business with very little systemization or structure, regardless of industry, regardless of pay or anything else, is probably not going to end well, or at least not begin well. And I think the crucial thing I learned from Systems for Outsourcing was that when that initial VA came, we had a much nicer structure, a much more like clear path on how the next few months were going to go. And I'm proud to say that that VA who initially joined us, the very first one, all those time, is now our most senior VA in our team. She's hired multiple VAs for our business. She's a massive advocate for our business. She's one of the top performers across the team, not just for VAs, but just the entire business. And I remember saying recently to Katie, I think if we had a really complex complaint that came in, that was, high level, it was detailed, it needed someone pretty switched on to deal with it. She's actually one of the number, if not the number one person in my team to deal with it. She doesn't just draft an email and say, "Is that okay?" She goes far beyond expectations, and I think um, that was ultimately the penny drop. Then the penny dropped, and that wow, this is special. This could be amazing. And then it very quickly became, how fast can we almost systemize the success of
Yeah.
recruitment again and again and again, to just replicate the success we had with the first VA, whose name was Rolinda. Yeah, that's how the sort of world of VA started for us.
Yeah. And you mentioned that I don't like the term VA, or virtual assistant. And the two reasons I don't particularly like it is one, virtual assistant isn't a role. There's no business in the planet that starts out and goes, you know what, I need to grow. It's a bunch of virtual assistants to do virtual assistant work. It's, you're using you need work getting done, and maybe it's a marketing assistant, maybe it's a lettings assistant, maybe it's a
Yeah,
marketing manager. And so so one of the things that my bugbear is like, just give people a. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm not saying that you don't do
yeah,
this, but it's like that's what my bugbear is like. Is if you have the mindset that this person is a VA and you're trying to fit them into your business, there is no place for them. So they
of
end up.
course.
What I see with many business owners, there'd be the person that basically deals with the crap, or that I don't know who else should do this, so I just give it to the VA.
Yeah,
Whereas as soon as you start having to think about roles and positions and responsibilities and KPIs and actually define what somebody does, it gives them ownership, it gives them motivation, it makes them feel part of the business, like you
yeah,
value their work, all these things. I'm sure, I know you do. Like that's the thing, that's the game changer for me in terms of mindset for the business owner and the success of hiring that remote worker. And so
yeah.
I think that's the
But
key.
you
Yeah.
say, it's easy for me to say this now because I'm experienced with VAs, but at the time I wasn't, and I didn't appreciate that fact, and I did very much treat them as a VA when you're new, and that's why even you creating the terms of engagement document for me to fill out, you asked me, what is this VA's job title?
Yeah.
Like, I might not have even had that question or even communicated that to the VA if I'd done it on myself. I had to come up with a proper job description, clear parameters on how they would be paid, what their hours of work were, everything. And it's that hand holding that crucially I needed at the time, to not just be a success for me, but for that VA to feel clear in what they had to bring to the table. And it's obvious looking back now, and we've now got 12 VAs. Well, actually, we had 12 VAs when we were acquired. We're now 20 plus across the business.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing to see just how they integrate into the team. And if you're on a team meeting with us, other than the fact they're on a screen, the contribution to the discussion, how they engage with their colleagues or customers, you would not know that they were VAs. Are just as much part of the team as the UK guys sitting around the office and the managers.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. One of my other long-standing clients is a guy called Georgios Verdes, who've actually interviewed us on the podcast a few times, and he's got a team now, 60% Philippines, 40% UK, and exactly the same. I mean, exactly the same scenario he talks about. Is like, to be honest, like, there is no difference in his mind between the two, the remote versus the local.
Yeah,
It's purely geography.
yeah,
For me, it's a little bit different because my entire team's remote, so this is the only thing I've ever known in this business.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really
But you can
great
be
to
quite
hear.
cynical when you start, and I'm not afraid to admit I was. Like when you hear about, oh, Filipino answering my phone phone call line? Is that going to look great for my customers? Are they going to sound like they're in a different place? Call center vibes and stuff like that. And I was quite a cynic myself of that, and thinking, oh, they'll just be back of house. But actually, we Brits are not the most confident at being overly customer servicey anyway. And hello, welcome to Liverpool. How can we help you today? It doesn't come naturally to us. We're quite reserved. Was I think some of the VAs flourish in that role. They got great English accents. They're very confident, and that's what they love to do. And I think actually um putting me on the end of a phone sounding grumpy, saying, hello, how can I help you, against one of the VAs who works in our customer services team, I think, yeah, I would undoubtedly be a worse initial customer experience for our guests than those guys anyway. So it's not actually a step down in any way, shape, or form. And that was a bit difficult to swallow for me, to admit that I was wrong at the start.
Yeah. And I think that especially customer service, because there's such a big industry over there, the BPO industry, which is heavily leaning towards or leans towards customer service for the big, the big organizations in the world. They have huge offices out there just filled with people basically on the phones dealing with complaints and customer service. And they get off. It's also, what's that word expression? Blasphemy of fire, is it? When basically they go into this is straight out of university. They go in there and they do a few years of hell in there, and then
Yeah,
come out this completely, trained to the absolute hilt of being brilliant at coping with the worst type of clients, or just being brilliant, being nice, like you say. And then
yeah,
we get the benefit of picking them up, and because they want a different lifestyle, and we can offer it them, and
yeah,
often with better pay than they got before, and definitely better work-life balance, and not having to commute or live away from family, and all those sorts of things, which as
yeah.
independent business owners, when people are working from home, if that's the lifestyle they want, it's hugely beneficial. So yeah, I think it works really well both ways.
Yeah, well, you mentioned an important point there as well, of they come from big companies in the BPO industry a lot of the time. When they work for a small business with a much more of an impact and a proper culture of like making friends within the team, they're not just a number. It's the same reason I got into starting my own business. That is a huge plus for them. So a lot of the time, small business owners think, oh, this is not for me. It's only for the big guys. I can't
Yeah,
possibly outsource my back end. But actually, they prefer to work with a company like you, where they have direct access to the owner. Their decisions will make an impact on the future of the business, and they're not
yeah,
just a number in a call center. So it's again another misconception that a lot of small business owners have about VAs.
yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that one of the big sort of interesting things on me, looking, having been a witness to your journey. I was involved for a period of time, but then I've just been aware of what you've been doing since then. Is this transformation of being a total local based staff with little belief that it could be done any other way, to now hearing you today, just a total change of opinion, and where you now sit with this, and a massive advocate. And I think that, well, just I think that's a fabulous thing to be being a witness to, and a party to. But I guess one question that comes to mind is, okay, we may have given you that nudge and help you, giving you the system, do the hiring and the onboarding, whatever. But there's still this, okay, so you've got Asana, you've got a bunch of tasks in there. You found the confidence to go out and hire some, talented or experienced or just dedicated virtual team. But how do you run 100 properties simultaneously without your day-to-day involvement? How do those two things come together? That's what I think would be interesting to know.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, Steve. I think there's that famous saying of a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and that big list that I mentioned before doesn't just eradicate itself. That's a lot of hard work, but it's focused hard work, and it's repayable infinitely over the long term. It's not do this task this week and it'll pop up again next week. As you work your way through that list of processes in your business, all of a sudden the balance tips a little bit, and now you've got more processes systemized in your business than one's not. And then it's almost the opposite of compound interest, where you get more and more time back, that eventually the speed at which you can systemize these tasks becomes even faster, to the point now where if a new task comes up in our business, it's very quickly systemized before it even becomes a headache, as we know that this needs to be systemized if it's to be scaled. So obviously when you hire your first VA, you can't just say, right, great, we're done. You systemize my business. I'm going to go and live on the beach. You've got to almost feed them the list of processes that you created, either through your Loom videos or your I remember the didact
Yeah.
acronym of all the different things we did. And as they almost build their base of processes that you fed them, they then begin to make their own, because now the business is still evolving. It's not a static list that you create in 2016 and then off you go. It's one that you have to keep evolving over time. But they buy into the ideology of why it's important. It's not just a dump of processes on their to-do list to say, do a video for all of these, please. They know the importance, and they're also, in our case, going to be hiring the next VA to take their place very soon. We always try to promote from within.
Yeah.
We always try to move the VAs into different positions within the business that best suit their requirements. They know it like a hated thing that we did, and we do task confidence surveys of what they feel that they know or what they don't like. And ultimately, as they move forward, the tasks that they once did and created the process for is now being used by the next VA who's following a similar journey. And it's that lovely sort of full circle where you just need, again, to use the snowball analogy, to push that snowball down the hill by getting that list done. Start to chip off a few a week. I think I had a target of like 4 or 5 a week, and if I had any spare time, I'd try and get through some more. But eventually, if you just keep plugging at it, eventually the table sort of tips, and you get up one day and think, wow, that everything that my VA's done today, I would have done 6 months ago. But
Yeah.
now I'm able to go and find a new task or focus on something different. And it's a liberating feeling that I can't describe on a podcast, but it's almost magical when you think this is why all those hours of work and all those calls with Steve and all the years of chaos, so to speak, were worth it, because now it's not like you've shifted the chaos onto someone else. It's actually a thriving person in a business who really enjoys their job and is really getting on with what they need to do to make their cog in the machine work.
Yeah. And if they're part of something like that, then exactly, it's like they know that the work they do has value. And that, going back to you saying earlier as well about like when someone's come from an industry where that isn't the case and you give them that, then they forgive you for a lot when things aren't right at the beginning, or as things, new challenges come up, or you realize you screw something up. But if you've given something beyond the job,
Yeah,
whether that's the culture, the community within the business as well, all those things you just ticked. If I ask my team what's the biggest reason they stay with me, I think most of them would say it's the team, not
of
me,
course,
not
of
me, not
course,
what we do,
not the
not
pay.
it's the team,
Yeah,
and that's something that if you've never worked with remote workers, it can be hard to understand how that could even be, because none of my staff have ever met each other, even though they all live in the Philippines. Philippines is a big country. And
yeah. Well, that was actually one of the proudest things that I had recently, where all of our staff actually met each other in the Philippines. Some of them went on the train for 4+ hours. Some of
yeah,
them took their family and they went to church together. And like, I think one of them went to visit a friend and played the guitar in the church in the service. And just seeing that, they sent a picture on our sort of internal chat, and seeing two families come together with two of the VAs we'd hired, and they actually become friends. And little old me sort of plowing away a few years ago with bed sheets has actually led to that
yeah,
friendship, is just crazy. And yeah, it's something that I'm so proud of that we've managed to do, because it's not just, we didn't just bring them together in the business and they become friends. It's the culture we've created to allow that to flourish. They aren't just colleagues who have to, Big Brother style track every minute, and they don't work hard. Someone else is in the door. Like, we really try to foster a team spirit. Like, we take the team out for a meal in the UK. We go for restaurants. We do a pizza party for the VAs. They get a grab voucher. They can order food for their family. It costs next to nothing for the business. They all join on Zoom and play music, and we all try to come on and just have a bit of a quiz or something like that. But for them, that is huge. They spend most of the day in the same room at home, logging on, and being able to feel a connection through the screen is what I think is ultimately the next level after systemizing. You can systemize and systemize and systemize, but if you actually want to create a culture that layers on top of those systems to bring it all together and to feel like it's an actual team effort, that's what I think was what really accelerated our growth. Because once we did all the systems that was set, the next level is performance, and how we can actually excel the team above just following the system and actually thinking with initiative, feeling trusted, having confidence to not ask for permission all the time and to have a go. And that isn't coming from just someone telling you to go for it. You need to feel trusted. And it's a hard thing to achieve through a remote working team, but very much a possibility that anyone can do if they just do what is a good manager is in the UK as well, whether you're in the UK, America, South Africa, or the Philippines, just make people feel appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I learned, I mentioned this book a few times on the podcast, but The Effective Manager by Mark Horstman, and we actually have some of his teachings which we've brought into our course because it's so powerful. And the having regular one-to-ones with your team, giving feedback in a really structured, meaningful, and productive way, or change the future behavior, and all these things, they build that trust that you just described. And I think when that observation, you meant that trust is a two-way street. You can trust them, but they have to trust you. Otherwise, they will not take risks. And then you get frustrated. And I've been guilty of this. Just I can over the years, I feel myself sort of getting too involved, and that just by the fact you're getting involved means you're undermining the trust or the feeling of trust that they have with you. So you've got to let people have that total confidence that whatever decision they make is going to be okay, even if it doesn't go okay.
Of course, yeah.
And there's a great book. So one of our values is we poke the box, and it's taken from Seth Godin's Poke the Box. And so when my staff join the company, they're actually, one of their parts of their onboarding is to read this book. It's only a short, small book, but it's all about that. If you want to be a good business owner, if you want to be a good employee, if you want to get on with life or progress forward in life, is you've got to be willing to try the unknown, to take the risk, to learn from the mistake. And especially when you're working with people from cultures like in the Southeast Asia, and I'm sure in other parts of the world as well, is that risk-taking culture has to be nurtured, because there's such a fear of reprimand or being reprimanded for doing things wrong, that it's something that is not without exception, but generally speaking, isn't something that a lot of people I've worked with from the Philippines find natural and easy. So literally day one you arrive in my company, go to Amazon, we've got a Kindle account, go and read that book. It's part of it's actually one of our values, because I realized the importance of making people realize we were serious about it.
Yeah, one of the best tips I can give for trying to foster that, beyond what I mentioned before, was whenever we had our team meeting. A lot of team meetings are, logging on to a Zoom call, sitting there watching a conversation how we had that you're not really too much of a part of, and making sure that you're ready if anyone calls your name. And it can be, as we're all humans, it can be quite boring at times if you're not privy to all the conversations. So we always finish our team meeting with a reward and recognition slide, which is essentially a list of our core values at the top, 5 core values, and we just call out any other team members who we think have demonstrated that core value this week. So we could say, I think Relinda showed core value number 3, which is to show initiative or whatever it might be when she did X task. And it was a great way for the managers to call out the team who took risks, and even though it might not have come off, but say they showed the core value of our business by doing that task. And even though the result wasn't quite what we wanted, that's the exact behavior we want. But you've got 10 other VAs on that call listening in, seeing someone be publicly praised for something they thought they shouldn't be doing. So it's 10 times the value of, and that person now feels confident that they can go again. And it's a great way to celebrate genuine wins as well. And it always finished the team meeting on a high. Everyone will log off with a buzz. the tone of everyone's voice would go up, and people would make notes all week on how they would fill the reward and recognition. And sometimes you had to stop it because it was going on for 10 plus minutes, but it was just one of my favorite parts of the week. And I think it was massive role in pulling together the team who eventually would praise each other. They would call out another VA who would help them and why. And
I was just gonna say we do a very
yeah,
similar thing, but a slight spin is rather than sort of me or the manager pointing people out, so there's to avoid any favoritism, we just get the team to say where they've seen their colleagues display the values. So it's exactly the same principle.
yeah, no, that's what we do. Yeah, so
Yeah,
everyone has equal
yeah.
say. It's just great to see them getting the confidence to then give praise.
I think I got the idea from Traction by Gino Whitman, but I might have
Yes,
just made
yeah,
that up. Is it? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
traction is a very. I did a lot of my business is linked to the EOS,
yeah,
Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Whitman.
yeah.
So,
A lot of the stuff
yeah,
we've made our own take on it, but a lot of the stuff we actually in the coaching program is based on that when it comes to the management meeting structure,
yeah,
KPI results, right person, right seat, all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, and the values and the mission.
yeah,
They've got actual exercises of how to do that. You don't just get in a room and say, "What should we do?" Then
no,
it's actually
it took me two
systematically.
years, but
Yes.
yeah, it was worthwhile. Oh, fantastic. Oh, I'll tell you one last thing, just on that same note, while I remember. Another thing that I actually learned from George's, who I mentioned before,
Yeah.
he has in a Slack channel, which is a company wins and a company misses. So he has one Slack
Okay.
channel for company wins and one for the company
I love
misses.
that.
And people just basically paste in once a day. I've actually put it on the task board, update company wins and misses. So everyone has to do it as one of their accountable tasks. And they have to put something on there which screwed up or went well. And
Yeah.
then people then start seeing that everybody is screwing up every day. And
Yeah.
that is an incredibly powerful thing. And it's taken so much fear out of making mistakes. So yeah, I can't thank George enough for sharing that little tidbit with me. But yeah,
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Joe, we're gonna have to draw this one to a close. We've been chatting for ages, and I could continue chatting to you for many, many more hours, I'm sure. I'm sure we will going forward. But for today, is there anything else you would like to share or close on that we don't think we've covered today?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think one of my main messages I want to get across today was just systemizing it is just so important to start as early as you can. The earlier the penny drops, the better. There's no time when it's too late to start, and there's no time when it's too early to begin. It's just the moment you truly understand how important it is to get it sorted, but to not stop with systemizing as the only answer, and that the people behind running the systems are just as important. And too often I see businesses with one or the other, and treating your people as people and not VAs, as we've mentioned, is I think testament to the culture and success of Ho So Simple. And that's one of the things that I'd say it is mostly misunderstood with business owners who are too busy to understand it. They just need to get that list done, systemize, and they think the job's done. I think if I can get one person to understand from this podcast that the job doesn't stop at the systemizing part, you can actually, in a way, with some of the tools we've mentioned today, almost systemize your culture. It doesn't mean you have to force everyone to be happy, and if no one's smiling, that you're not fitting our culture. It's just little tools like the reward and recognition, or like George's company wins, company misses. That isn't forcing people to be a certain way. It's just exposing what is already there and making it more obvious. And I think as business owners and managers, we have a responsibility to not just foster a culture through the usual ways, but also the unusual ways. And that if there's any systems and processes we can do to try and elevate that or make it more prominent in the day-to-day chaos of business, then we definitely should do so. I'm really happy with the fact that we've managed to touch on that already, and that was the only thing I wanted to make sure was heard from my end today.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. But before you do go, I do have a quick question to ask you, or two quick questions actually. Firstly, you're obviously a lover of systems, and I'm sure that includes a bit of technology here and there. What two or three apps or plugins or software would you not be able to live without in your business, either now or going forward?
Yeah, I knew this question was coming, so I thought I'll try and be a little bit more off-piste. I think the obvious ones are Asana and Google Drive and Zoom, etc. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper with Asana. So Asana is so powerful as a tool, and a lot of people will have to-do lists already. And when you try to explain Asana in a verbal format in a conversation, it is impossible to explain how powerful it actually is. One of the features that I love in Asana is Asana rules. So I have my to-do list, which is set up. I think you helped me do this with your most important tasks, your pending, and
Yeah.
all these different columns. But I have different columns which for future. So I actually have a car park list, which is essentially like one day in the future, I'd love to look at this, but right now it's not getting the time of day. I look at that mostly on flights or places where I've got a lot of time and not much other work I can be doing. But Asana rules means that I can set a date in the future where it'll pull in to the column that I want automatically. So if I send an email or if I have a task that I need to maybe look again at the end of the month, if I open my laptop on the Monday of that week, it might drop straight into the column of today's to-do list. It's almost like a PA within Asana, which is amazing. And then I think actually that's only for the paid version of Asana, which at
Yeah.
the same time I heavily recommend anyway. But the free version is also very good. Then we've got, and again, it's a bit more niche, but I think for people who are listening to this with an essay background, it's still worthwhile. I thought I could go a bit general, but I'd be
Absolutely.
like I'd be lying if it wasn't actually helpful for me. And that is the PMS software that I use to run my business, which is Guesty. Guesty is very powerful. It's also very expensive, but I'm a big believer that you should be getting as much out of technology as you possibly can within your business, and then trying to systemize the surplus and not trying to systemize what ultimately a software could do. So Guesty does all sorts of things. It's, in my opinion, the best in class software for service accommodation. It's more aimed at maybe larger users, towards 5+ units, but like we're a business now with 1,000+ units. We're using Guesty day in, day out. It's very robust, very powerful, and really recommend it. And the last one is more property related. So as I've exited my business, I've become a bit more prominent in investing myself and jumping that fence almost to the client side, and now accumulated a little portfolio of holiday lets. And one of the great tools I discovered recently was a tool called Prop Bar. Prop Bar essentially like ties into Rightmove and Zoopla and just gives you a whole lot of more information that is often missing on those listings, such as when it was last sold, had it been reduced in price, what the EPC rating is, which can often have the square footage of the apartment in, any old floor plans that have previously been uploaded. It just is a nice add-on tool for those looking to try and acquire property in the future, which gives you a leg up on your competitors who might not have that information or might be booking in a viewing to go and find out that information, and you're now a little bit ahead of any competitors who might be able to bid on the property. So yeah, Asana rules, Guesty, and Prop Bar are my three recommendations.
Fantastic. I like them all. And finally, this podcast is called Systemize Your Success, but what does success mean to you?
Yes, I think success is ultimately what you define. And my success a while back was freedom, but I realized that actually is quite a vague term. And I was introduced to the concept of time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom as different segregations of that. And being able to focus on one of them to achieve one of them first before you go into the others made achieving ultimate freedom, which is, in my opinion, all three, a lot more of a achievable goal. So financial freedom is obviously to have as much money to do what you want, and spend as much as you want. Time freedom is to have as much free time as you like and not be tied down to any role. And location freedom is to work from wherever you want in the world and not be tied down to a specific location. So for me at the moment, I'm focusing on the financial freedom aspect, which is investing into property. But then in the future, as that property portfolio hopefully matures and begins to return, I would then move on to being able to be more time free and location free. And I think being specific with what you want makes the goal much more achievable than a generic word of freedom, which I was guilty of in the past, and being introduced to that concept more recently has made things a lot more focused for me in the next few years of my life. So I would say, yeah, success is being focused on what type of freedom you're hoping to achieve, and ultimately achieving that. I think that's the mark of a successful person.
Fantastic. Great answer. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and have a chat with us here. And I look forward to our next conversation.
No, thank you so much for having me, Steve. It's a real privilege to be on here. And like I said at the start, I owe a lot of what I've achieved down to some of the tools that you taught me back in the day. So yeah, a massive thank you.
And a massive congratulations on exiting the business. So well done.
Cheers. Thank you.
Fantastic. Cheers, Joe.
Thank you.